reptiles, our ancestors, they can't make any facial expressions. They can't smile. They can't grimace. They can't pucker. They just look like a lizard all the time. That's all they can do, okay? That's because they lack facial muscles. What happened in mammals is that this cutaneous muscle, that's a broader term, a cutaneous muscle is one that attaches to the underlying, to the muscles, tissues inside, and then up to the underside of the dermis of the skin. So that when it contracts, it moves the skin. So it's a cutaneous muscle. There's one in the neck area that starts developing early on in evolution of vertebrates, and ultimately it's called the platysma in the reptiles and in mammals. But in a reptile, it's only down in this throat area. But in mammals, what happens is it grows up over the face and head and differentiates into multiple facial muscles. Right? So when you're making out with your significant other, you can thank your facial muscles for being able to do that, because lizards can't. Right? They can't wiggle their ears, and most of you can, because that's a facial muscle that's derived from the platysma. This is just showing a sequence of events of the different muscles that led to it. So don't get confused. But here in a mud puppy, it was called the sphincter coli. They're calling it the sphincter coli in the lizards. You can see it's in the neck area. But then you can see in these examples of mammals that we now call it platysma in the neck area. But we have all of these extensions and differentiations going on leading up into the face. So you can raise your eyebrows and lower them. A lizard can't do it. Well, they don't have eyebrows. You know, they couldn't do it if they wanted to do it because they don't have these facial muscles. All right? Something very distinctly different between them and us. All right, I'll do another. Sensory. Mammals utilize olfaction more than any other group of vertebrates. Right? So they have their sense of smell overall is better developed than in any of the other groups of vertebrates. And we're going to correlate that later on when we look at glands. Right? So mammals do rely on olfactory communication more than any other terrestrial group. And so it's not surprising that their ability to detect odors is greater than in any other vertebrate groups. Okay. Two important developments in hearing. One is a pinna. What's a pinna?
It's part of your ear.
Yeah, it's the external ear, right? Reptiles don't have that. They just got a hole in the side of their head. But mammals, most of them, have a well-developed pinna. And of course, that's going to increase the sound gathering ability of the ear. So all other things being equal, mammals can pick up lower intensity sounds than can a reptile. Plus, many mammals have the ability, just watch a deer or a horse sometimes, their ears are going, all right? They can turn them in different directions. And so that aids in localizing that sound, which is important if it happens to be a predator or a prey. So by having this pinna, and by putting muscles into it that are derived from the platysma and the facial muscles, it's another facial muscle really, it allows you to move it and get better localization of sound. So you can pick up better the low intensity sounds and you can localize sounds better. In addition, mammals have three tiny bones in their middle ear. The incus, the malleus, and the stapes. I think we talked about the stapes a long time ago, didn't we? Where did it come from, evolutionarily speaking?
From the arches.
Yeah, specifically the second arch it came from. Well, the mammals have added then the incus and the malleus. And these are actually derived from jawbones of the reptiles. So the incus comes from a bone that was called the quadrate in a reptile, and the malleus comes from another bone called the articular. So if you look at a turtle skull or just about any reptile or amphibian, where the upper and lower jaws are making contact with each other, it's the quadrate in the upper jaw making contact with the articular in the lower jaw. But in mammals, these bones become very tiny and they move inwards to the middle ear. And what you have then, that is your tympanum, is you have a chain of bones, 1, 2, 3, that are transmitting that sound from the tympanum to the inner ear. And supposedly this chain of bones amplifies that sound. And I'm not exactly certain how that amplification takes place. But by having the three, it is another way of being able to pick up more of the low intensity sounds. Because you have very tiny movements of the tympanum that are getting amplified slightly by this chain of bones. And then that's going to move the fluid inside your inner ear and ultimately get interpreted as sound. All right. Okay. We'll quit there for today. Let me explain all the good things you have to do with mammals in lab. There?
I already have one, I think. But
Oh yeah, you do. We don't have any songs or calls for you for mammals, but we do have animal tracks. So I will put probably at least 4 of these on the lab practical. When you study them, things that help are the number of toes, the shape of the print, and oftentimes you can get distinctive tail marks for some of them, like the beaver and the muskrat. Also, whether or not the handprint, footprint has claws showing. So those are some things that you could look for. Presence of claws, absence of claws, shape, size, tail drags, number of toes, things along those lines. All right, that's one. Then in the course pack, we have a bunch of mammalian taxonomy on pages 34 through 37. This is orders and families worldwide, like we were doing with the other groups. The difference is, I think you know what these things look like. All right, you probably know what 75% of them look like, and I'm not going to bring out examples of a monkey so you can see what a monkey looks like. So that mammalian taxonomy, I'm asking you to know it, and we're not going to use specimens. If you see something on there that you want to see, and I haven't, just ask me and I can go pull it out. You know, if you've never seen, for example, what wouldn't you have seen? A molossid bat, a free-tailed bat. I can go show you what one looks like, right? So anything in there, if you want to see it, I can probably give it to you. I don't have too many whales in the back. The core of what you're going to be doing in lab is pages 38. It doesn't really go on to 39. I give you 26 species of mammals from the state of Michigan that you need to know. That's about 1/3, maybe a little less than 1/3 of those that actually exist in the state. But most of these are ones that you're either familiar with or you would have contact with potentially down here in the south. So I'm putting the skins out of those. I think I missed about 5. I'll have to get them, but they're on the back. So you need to know the common name, you need to know that order that they're in, and you need to know the scientific name. On top of that, I want you to be able to take the skull of a mammal and tell me what order it belongs to. Now that's fairly simplistic. So if you're in mammalogy, for example, you had, how many did you have, 45?
Yeah.
For about 45 different species, they had to identify the skull of that species. All right? All I'm asking you to do is tell me, is this a carnivore? Is this a rodent? Is this a lagomorpha? All right? So there's only about 9 or 10 different orders that are present in the state. The last couple pages of this current crop of handouts, the last couple pages have things that will help you identify the skulls, I think. So it's going to be a key to the orders. And then there's a couple of diagrams of mammalian skulls if you need them in order to figure out what some of the words in the key means. Okay. So you're familiar with the concept of a key. You can use that key with each of these skulls, then run it through the key, and you should be able to determine what the order is. There are pieces of tape on most of them with a letter, and then I have a little bit of key right here. So you can try to key it out and then see, all right, was I right? Is G what I thought it was? You can go look on the list. But I will have some skulls on the exam asking you what order it happens to belong to. The sit down will be the taxonomy, both worldwide and Michigan. And then we'll identify skulls, we'll identify skins or pictures of mammals. Okay? All right, go for it. And I'll get out those last few that I have in front of me.
So let's look at the sheet.
I am actually not going to say, unfortunately. I closed last night, so I'm going to do